on.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Dungeon Delvers. Today, we will be diving into the Dungeon of the Bard. As always, he's Gene,
He's Rennie.
and together, we are Unconventional Heroes.
Nailed it.
That one was pretty good, I won't lie.
I've been working on it.
We'll get it. Episode 20, it'll be perfect. As always, folks, we are two gigantic nerds. We are not doctors. We are not scientists. We are not rocket surgeons. Everything you hear today will be a matter of opinion. They are opinions that we may hold dear to or that we make up on the spot. It is really, it's really a catcher's catch can in that sense. But thank you for joining us. And if you have questions throughout the episode, please feel free to put them up in chat. We do read it as we go through. And we will try to get to every question that comes our way. If we don't answer your question, it's more than likely that we're going to cover that topic at some point in the episode. But nevertheless, we will endeavor to, kind of touch on everyone's questions, comments, concerns. Yeah, I don't know. Anything we want to talk about before we get started, G?
So tomorrow I'll be running Lost Legacy. I believe it is episode 7. I don't know what I labeled it, but I'm sure it has a cool name. Because I'm clever. That's how that works. That we will hopefully have our new community goal for Dungeon Delvers up by tomorrow's stream.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yep. So after that gets designed, but I think for there, I think I'm good as of right now.
Nice. Well, I guess without further ado, Gene, let us delve into the dungeon of the Bard. Are you ready to lose at initiative?
Always.
Is that your secret, Gene? You're always ready to lose at initiative?
Yeah, I prefer it going as that I am assessing the scene. So.
Yes. All right, let's do this shit.
All right. Okay. Ooh, I have
a strong start.
I have a chance.
It's very true.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
All right. Well, for the first time and only time I will win initiative this go, let's talk about why be a bard. Do you want to be a rock and roll hero? Do you want to sing, dance, and cleverly get your way through things? Well, then be a bard. It's dope as shit. But here's some cool classic inspirations, or some less classic but modern, from movies, TV, comics. You got the Blues Brothers. They're on a mission from Gad. They sing their way to victory, and somehow things go right for them. You got Chaucer. If you ever, he was definitely a bard, and if you ever watched the movie Knight's Tale, Bettany does a very good job of Paul Bettany. Then you have David Bowie as the Goblin King, very high bardic energy, with his contact juggling and singing songs that enchant and inspire. From old stories, you have the Pied Piper, from I think the Kingslayer series, right? Koth.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at him drawn, doesn't always look what you think he should look like. And then if you enjoy Sentinels of the Multiverse like Rennie and I do, another good example is Argent Adept. There are many different plethora of bards, but kind of think of your ability to captivate, your storyteller, but also you don't have to sing, but singers and performers. But if you can also wrap enchantment and maybe a little bit of dashing swordsmanship, you'd be a bard.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, another reason to be a bard is it is the ultimate kind of support class. Everyone's got a kind of what they like to play in D&D, whether you want to smash people in the face with a sword, you want to punch your way to victory, you want to control the arcane cosmic power. Bards kind of hit this thing where they can do a lot, but they always have access to these support abilities that really lend themselves to be an asset to any party they're part of.
Oh yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, but you get to kill your enemies with the power of rock and roll. Um, you know, if you think of many of their different spells and their spell casting involves, sonic damage or thunder for the case of it, or their spells are enchanting people or even making them dance and do funny things, or helping your friends by healing and buffing them. So your spell power is just awesome at both support but also destroying through the power of rock.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And the nice thing is beyond all the support they get baked into their class, you get access to high level magic. You are a full caster. You're gonna have a pile of spells to wield against your foes or aid your friends. Um, and it's nice because as Bard, like charisma is pretty much the only stat you need. Yes, sure, you need some constitution for hit points and concentration, and depending on the kind of bard you are, maybe you want some dex. But like charisma is pretty much where it's at. And you get some access to some very good spells.
Uh, and also, not to mention, is a lot of backing this up is that you're pretty good at most skills. There is not a skill that you're gonna be the worst at. You're probably not gonna be the best at some of them, but you're definitely not gonna be the worst. And having lots of skills gives you some out of combat opportunities that certain other classes may not benefit from.
Yeah, it's very true. And going along with that charisma thing that I was talking about, you kind of become almost the default face character of the party. As you have high charisma, you're probably good at persuasion, deception, intimidation. One or all of those. And it just makes you really good in RP and social situations. So if that is an aspect of a character or a class that appeals to you, Bard is going to treat you very right in that sense.
And then also it comes down to, like, if you've watched some of the live plays, a lot of the bardic players, and even for yourself, you get to kind of show off your musical or comedy skills, or your inspiring speeches. And so it's like it gives you a chance that if you want to showboat a little, you can showboat for the team, and no one's gonna get mad at you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, because the nice thing is it's always to help other people, so no one's like, here he goes again, or here she goes, like, um. And the last thing that I want to say before we move into our next level of the dungeon is, there's not really an analog in our modern day to a wizard or a cleric. I mean, that can cast magic, I suppose. There are people who utilize intelligence skills or people in positions of real faith. But bards, in my opinion, they have this sort of analogy where, like, for those people out there who are musically inclined or have been moved by music or have seen a performance that touches them and that gives them a very real emotion, I feel like bards are one of the classes that there is a very real analog for in even modern day, as I'm sure there's a majority of people out there who have, experienced a very emotional and very real. And whether it's magic or just your brain firing the right neurons at the right time because of a certain, performance, there is real power in music. There is real power in performance. And it's kind of cool that there are modern day bards. Hell, we see them all the time in popular music and comedians and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool that is still like, as much as it's like it's a medieval fantasy class, that role in our world still very much exists.
No, yeah, I agree. And also, like, the other thing is, lastly, is like, you don't have to have all these talents to play the character of a bard. Like, I have played many a bard, and I am not musically inclined in the slightest. So you don't have to be able to sing, dance, and perform. It's a character. But if you have those skills, it's a little bit way to show those off.
For sure. All right, Gene, I think we're ready to move into our next level.
Yeah, I'm ready to lose initiative. Let's try it. Let's see what happens.
I mean, you got your one, so
Yes.
here it comes.
It's a good number. Good number.
Let's see if I can. Yeah, yep, there it is.
There it is.
So moving on to our next level of the dungeon is, what does it mean to be a bard? Where we're going to get a little more into the nitty gritty of the class itself. First things first is Bardic Inspiration, the ability that is for bards and bards alone. It's a great tool to support your allies. And what I really love about Bardic Inspiration is, again, it's a support kind of thing. No one's going to be sad that you gave them an extra D6, D8, D10, whatever, to something they're about to do, but it also really gives you great opportunities for those heroic moments where it's like, oh man, this monster's almost dead. We need one more good hit. Well, your bard's like, Bardic Inspiration to your fighter, to your barbarian, get him! And like, you get those big hero moments, and as a bard, you get to kind of facilitate them to some degree. And that always is fun when you can kind of elevate the narrative for the people that are playing with you.
Oh, absolutely. And I like their spell casting. It's unique because they have spells known. They have a decent amount of spells they know. With like the set amount of tricks, so you can like flavor your bard. You don't have to be the I do kaboom damage. You could be the control bard. You could be the very healy support bard. Your spells kind of help define what role you want to play with the bard you choose.
That's actually a really great point, Gene. For any like a sorcerer, yes, spells known is important because your spells are kind of just as much as a class feature as anything else you do. But for bards, I feel like it really sets the tone for your class, for how you're going to interact in combat, for how you're going to interact out of combat. And again, depending on what college you go for, it's going to kind of flavor probably what direction your bard goes in. But yeah, those spells are super important because when you get those spells, those are the only spells you get. Sure, you can trade out here and there, but like when you wake up every day, those are the things you can do. That is all of the things. No more, no less. But moving on from their spells, Jack of all trades is one of, again, bards only, but is a phenomenal ability that really lets you never be terrible at any given skill, because you get to add half your proficiency bonus to any skill you're not trained in. And it gives you a little bit of initiative boost because it's technically a dexterity ability check and it falls under Jack of all trades, which is really nice. But, again, I like this a lot, not because it's mechanically good, but it also just kind of tells you how a bard lives. They're like, listen, I may not know how to do medicine, but I heard a story about a guy who did medicine once, and I could probably, like, fake the rest. And, you're someone who's just sort of, you're willing to try new things. You take all these experiences and these stories and these things you've heard and you put them together and make it work, maybe.
I mean, plus they're also the best counter spellers in the game because that's a fucking ability
True.
check. Pew pew pew.
That is a very good point.
And then kind of like taking that whole like jack of all trades, with some of the skills you get, you eventually get expertise. You can truly be a master of what you want. Well, whether that's like performance because you're constantly singing, could be an instrument. It could also be persuasion or deception or stealth. I don't know, whatever skill you're skilled in. So you can really, you don't have to face the norms, but if you want, you can be an exceptional performer. You can be an exceptional athlete. Those are all up to you. And I think it's nice that you get to take really focus hard on certain skills to be like, nope, I am the best at these. And expertise, kind of what that represents.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's awesome. And you get it more than once in your class. So, once you get into the higher levels of Bard, you can really, like, the things that you're good at, you are exceptionally good at. Um, Next up, you get Font of Inspiration at 5th level, which lets you just get your Bardic Inspirations back on a short rest and a long rest. Which is just great because, as a bard, you're going to throw out those bardic inspirations, and depending on what college you use, you might use them to fuel other abilities. So the idea that you can get those back on a short rest is very, very nice. Yeah.
Then you also get this, you get a very neat ability called Counter Charm. It lets you kind of, give your friends and allies, people can hear you, advantage against being charmed and frightened, but it takes a whole action to do, so you have to kind of know it's happening so you can start it. It's a pretty cool ability. I just think it should be a little quicker, as in like a reaction. That's my opinion.
I mean, this is the place for it. Yeah, Counter Charm is nice, but it just it's like just bad shit's already been happening to your party, and this is then you're trying to prevent it as opposed to like totally stopping it when you have this ability active. But whatever. Next up, you get a Song of Rest, which is great because it gives people extra healing out of combat. And again, out of combat healing is pretty easy to come by, especially with short rests and a number of spells that you can really get a lot out of between combat. But depending on your party makeup and depending on how your group rolls, that Song of Rest can go a really far way between combats, and I like it because again, it adds some RP flavor to your character. Like during a short rest, do you play a little ditty, and you have this soft melody that people just are like, wow, that's nice, or do you tell a story? Do you sort of like bring everyone's mental and emotional state in a sort of more cohesive fashion after telling a tale of whatever. So it's a nice little just piece that's like it's useful and it helps you build your character in a more emotional and role play kind of way.
And then also they get fucking magical secrets, which is amazing.
Oh, amazing.
Where you get to gain like 2 spells from any class just to round out your list, and that can be at whatever level. You get it at 10th, so. And I think you get it later on as well. So you might get it twice. You do. So like at 10th level, that means you're gonna definitely have like 5th level spells from any list that you want. And then when you get higher level, you even get some of those 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, like, how's a bard with wish sound or clone or any of these other spells that you shouldn't have. But you have them because you're a bard, and it's cool. So it really helps you round out your list. And again, like, you want to be the burninating bard? Cool. You now have fireball. Pew pew. Like,
Yeah.
So it really, I think it's a nice way to make it so that you don't have to settle with just what you get from bard.
Yeah, definitely. Magical Secrets is immensely powerful because it can draw from any class, and that makes it massive. And then your capstone ability, if you go pure bard, is Superior Inspiration, which literally just with like a lot of classes that have a resource that they draw from, it gives you back an inspiration die when you roll initiative and you don't have any inspiration dice. Again, it's one of those high level, like, you're so good at being a bard, you can always inspire people kind of ideas, and that's cool.
Yeah. I think it's neat. I think most classes get it. That thing, it's okay.
Something like it, yeah.
Yeah. And then kind of going into your combat role as a bard, I mean, it's highly variable depending on what spells you take, plus, what college you take. You're always support. It's kind of hard not to be. There are some selfish bard builds that you can be non-supportive, but a lot of your spells and abilities kind of be like, hey, you're supportive, and you're like, no. But you're always a full caster. No one's taking that away from you. So you are probably going to often use spell casting and then supplement that with a little combat.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And honestly, bards have some of the most access to these sort of out of combat roles as well, in the form of, they're highly charismatic, you know. So you interact with the world, and i.e. the NPCs of the world, very easily, depending on what spells you take. And bards gain a lot of utility spells that are just useful. And sometimes they're straight up useful. Sometimes you get maybe like a lot of illusion spells that are situationally useful, but maybe are better used out of combat than in. And because of jack of all trades and expertise, you are a highly versatile, skilled character. So like, you always can help someone do something, be the front runner on skill checks. Like, as a bard, you kind of get a lot to do both in and out of combat. I will say, just a kind of addendum, it is a little bit of responsibility, I think, on the player to make sure that they are like, well, hey guys, I can just do it. Hey guys, I can just do it. And not taking that spotlight from other people. Because as a bard, you can really kind of pull that, like, don't you worry about blank, I got blank.
That's true. And I guess, do we want to just, talk a little bit about the Tasha stuff? I got it up here.
Sure. Let's at least touch on the Tasha's.
So, Tasha has given them an enhanced spell list, and there are a lot of really good spells that they didn't have before, just to kind of aid. Enlarge is awesome. Slow.
Slow is insane.
Hero's Feast. Prismatic Spray. They get a lot of good boosts in their spells. Magical Inspiration is a second level bard ability, where if someone has an inspiration die from you and you cast a healing spell, they can use that inspiration die to add to the healing, which is pretty cool.
Or the damage of a spell.
Or the damage of a spell, yeah.
It essentially lets Bardic Inspiration be good for casters, because in the past it's fine for casters, but you could only use it on saves or attack rolls. Now you can just straight up apply it to spells, which is nice.
And it's the person, so if they are a damaging caster, they can...
Yep.
And then obviously Bardic Versatility, which lets you kind of change a cantrip, and for you, change an expertise. Pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Gene, I think we are ready.
Ready to enter the colleges?
I will say, I also love that the bards have colleges as their subclasses when they're really depicted as these like traveling hobos who like get by on song and skill, but they're like, no, but I went to college.
Yeah. I got an associate's degree. What do you got? The wizard's like, well, I have a real degree.
I mean, man, maybe again they're like this perfect analogy in real world, because it's like, what did you get your degree in? Art history? Like, okay, buddy.
Liberal arts.
And then you have to be a traveling hobo to make ends meet. Yeah, no, this really works out.
Yeah, it's pretty modern analogy. Like, oh, how many jobs have you held when you got out? All right, you want to talk about these colleges?
Well, I think we have to roll initiative first, don't we, big guy?
Yeah, I was just waiting for you to roll first to hope that I could roll higher. But
oh, was this your master plan?
Yep, let's find out if it paid off. It did not.
It not.
It was worth it.
So as always, I like bards and their colleges a lot because you can apply the bard class to a lot of heroes or mythical figures throughout history, throughout mythology. And I mean, sure, they could have been a warrior, but they could have just as easily been like a bard from the College of Valor as they inspired their men, and they still like were on the front line fighting with their allies, but like they also had this charisma that was lent itself to their deeds. But as always, listen, we at Unconventional Heroes do not disparage anyone with a liberal arts degree.
Sorry, Ocelotus. It is only for Rennie and I to control the dice upon the chat. Maybe one day.
Yeah, no, maybe I think that'll be a feature we add at some point to let people roll dice. But as always, telling your story through your character choices, and that starts at your lineage, where you put your stats. But especially for bards, is what college did you take? How does your charisma manifest itself? And you kind of get to customize your flavor therein. I'm just going to roll into creation, Gene, and then we'll work off from there. So first up is one of the newer colleges, the College of Creation, which I have to be honest is bananas, in my opinion, just straight up BANANAS bananas. So it starts out where you get a motive potential that whenever you give someone a Bardic Inspiration, depending on how they use that Bardic Inspiration, they get an added benefit, which again kind of lends itself to that support class in an even bigger, broader kind of way. So if they use it for like an attack roll, they get to deal additional damage equal to your Bardic Inspiration, but it's also like an AoE effect. If they use it on an ability check, you can re-roll the Bardic Inspiration die on it to try to get a better result for the skill check in question. And if you do a saving throw with the Bardic Inspiration, you get a lot of temporary hit points out of it. So honestly, it kind of makes Bardic Inspiration an even better resource than it already was like a really good resource. Now it's an incredible resource. Next up, you get Performance of Creation, which, quite literally lets you temporarily create non-magical items. While there is a gold piece cost to each item you can make and a size limitation, depending on any scenario, if you're like, man, it'd be great if we had a door, and you just kind of like strum your guitar and a door shows up, it's pretty cool. If you're like, man, a ladder would help us get over this wall, and you just make a ladder, like, if you are clever and a little bit wacky, I like to think of these guys as pretty much like the Acme bards, because it's like, oh man, it'd be terrible if an anvil fell on you, and then you can create an anvil to fall on someone. So like, I really like these guys because you can really get creative. You can really, get wild with what you create and stuff like that. Next up, you have Animating Performance, which lets you animate any object that is large or smaller for up to an hour. Each animated object has a certain stat block, which you can find in Tasha's or D&D Beyond if you use that resource. And their stats get better as you level up, which is nice, so it doesn't just stay static the whole time. And if you get to control it with a bonus action or when you use a Bardic Inspiration. So that's really nice that it doesn't fuck up your action economy too terribly. And again, depending if you're a little clever, well, yes, it's great if you animate the statue in town square to fight the gnolls that have invaded. That's cool. That's dope. But like, oh man, we're in this dungeon and we really need this object to be over here. Well, you can just animate that object and tell it to walk over there. So like, depending on your level of creativity and what your GM lets you get away with, you can be real janky with animating performance.
I mean, you could create something and just animate it too.
That's very true. Absolutely true. You can create your own stuff to animate. Next up, their 14th level ability is Creative Crescendo, which essentially removes all the limitations of your of the original create objects ability, and you can just create multiple objects equal to your charisma modifier without a gold piece value, which, holy crap. Again, it becomes incredibly powerful when there is no gold piece limit on what you create. And you can create one larger object and then several smaller objects. It can get real silly. Think Fantasia when the brooms become animated and start mucking up the place, and depending if your GM really likes to paint the scenery with a lot of objects and a lot of bits and pieces in a dungeon, you can really sort of not take advantage, but you can really utilize the terrain to some advantage, and create your own, because that's a thing you can do. So yeah, that's College of Creation.
That's ludicrous.
Oh, it's fucking ridiculous.
What about when you invade, the evil emperor's kingdom and then just put a giant dick statue in the middle of his town square to show that you've been there?
Yep. Or you create a statue of him like eating his own fist like an idiot.
That is fair. All right. Well, next we will go over to the College of Eloquence, and they are kind of the masters of oratory. Get your minds out of the gutter. Their first ability is Silver Tongue, which is Persuasion Deceptions. They can't roll below a 10, which is awesome. Especially if you expertise or do anything with those skills, being a charismatic character. Unsettling Words, it's kind of neat. You get to debuff people where you get to spend your inspiration on a creature within 60 of you, and they must subtract that bardic die roll from the next saving throw they make before the start of your next turn. It's only a bonus action to use that. It's easy for you to set up nicely for your own spells and also your friends. And that's your kind of third level opening package. Your 6th level abilities, you get 2, which I think this one is really good. Unfailing Inspiration, which is if someone uses their Bardic Inspiration and doesn't succeed on that roll, they keep it. So it's pretty much use it until it works. And that's kind of awesome, because that means you don't feel like you're wasting your Bardic Inspiration. It also sucks when you lose it and you roll and you're like, well, the dice are just not with me. So it's nice that you can use that to keep going. Their level 6 ability is Universal Speech. I think this is hilarious because you get to choose a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier, and they can understand you. It does not say anything about you understanding them. So you just force them to be able to understand what you have to say for 1 hour. And you can recharge this with a spell slot or a long rest. And I think that's funny. And then their capstone is Infectious Inspiration, which is also really fun. Which is
so good.
Kind of playing off this idea of like where they can kind of, if you don't succeed with it, you keep it. But if you do succeed with their Bardic Inspiration, they can spend a reaction, the Bard, to give someone else a free Bardic Inspiration. As you kind of like, look how good that guy was. You're just as good, buddy. And you can use this reaction equal to your Charisma mod. And it recharges after a long rest. So they're all about making their inspirations last and really pay out.
Yeah, no, it's they're kind of the college of like, are you a bard? You are great at being a bard. Next up is the College of Glamour. Very Fey inspired bard where your charismatic power not only comes from your natural ability, but there's a bit of Fey magic that kind of exudes off of you when you use your bardic abilities. Starting out, you get this Mantle of Inspiration. And as opposed to just using your Bardic Inspiration in the classic sense, you can use your Bardic Inspiration to grant any number of allies temporary HP and allow them to use their reaction to take an immediate move. That can be very tactically powerful if it's, depending on the situation. And handing out temporary hit points to your whole party at one go is huge. It's kind of like a heroism for 5 or 6 people. Like, it's amazing. And the temporary hit points increases as you level up. Again, depending on your situation, that can be very good or just pretty good. Like, it's always going to be pretty solid. The next one is Enthralling Performance, which is a very powerful ability for a low level, especially in out of combat situations, where if you do a performance for a minute, no matter what the performance is, you force a number of creatures up to your charisma modifier to make a wisdom save or become charmed by you. And essentially, this charm is sort of a super charm because it lasts for up to an hour and it does a number of people, and these people become essentially like your super fans. They adore you. They will do whatever they can to protect you, and if they were already willing to fight for you, they will fight to defend you. And like in combat, it's probably not going to happen because it takes a minute to pull off. But out of combat, turning a small band into your super fans for an hour, you can get some shit done. Especially if you're like, oh, the mayor, the captain of the guard. Like, you can get real janky with Enthralling Performance. And just be wary if you abuse it. Your GM will probably give you some comeuppance. But next up, you have a Mantle of Majesty, which is really where a lot of their Fey magic really comes to bear, because it gives you the ability to cast Command as a bonus action for up to a minute, and it doesn't cost you a spell slot to cast that command. And you become this like majestic Fey creature. And if a creature's already charmed by you, they fail that save. So against command. So again, if you have super fans and then you do Mantle of Majesty, you can be really abusive.
You can give out the greatest command ever. Riot.
Riot. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Next up, and their final ability in the College of Glamour is Unbreakable Majesty, which I like a lot because it permanently changes your appearance. Because, like, you are no longer a mere mortal, you are very clearly a near Fey creature. And you can sort of boost it as a bonus action to gain this magical, majestic presence for a minute that makes it really hard to attack you. And any creature that tries to attack you has to make a charisma save or choose a new target. And if they make their saving throw, so they do attack you, well, that's fine because now they have disadvantage against your spells on the following turn. So, like, either way, it works out really well for you. It's pretty gross. You only get to do it once a day, but it's pretty solid. If you want a little Fey magic in your Bard stuff, sort of mix and match, you're gonna have a real good time.
Yeah, and then yeah, that's awesome. I have never read that one, and that's really a fucking cool Bard.
Ocelotus, an evil bard, could definitely start a purge.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So let's go with the most basic of bards from the Player's Handbook. The first one is also really, really good, which is the College of Lore. You get 3 more proficiencies, so Did you want to be great at more stuff? Because you are now. Pew pew pew. Then you get Cutting Words, which is a really nice ability, a reaction to use your Bardic Inspiration to give negatives to people trying to attack your friends or yourself, where you can do either attack roll, ability check, or the damage roll. So that's really nice to help mitigate. They get additional magic secrets, so at 6th level, they get another dose of magical secrets, kind of before everyone else. That means you're getting 6 out of class, I think, spells or more. But it's kind of really cool, especially at 6th level triggering it. There's a lot of good 3rd level spells. And then Peerless Skill, which is whenever you make an ability check, you can expend a Bardic Inspiration, and you can add that to your ability check. That is neat when you just hear it, but conceptually, used with Counterspell, that is a berserk ability.
Yep.
But also you can look at everyone and be like, look how great I am. I didn't fail that. Hold on. I inspired my own self.
Quick, hold my beer. I like College of Lore because while it is the classic bard from like PHP, you're still not gonna have a bad time. Like you're gonna have a great time with that subclass. And sometimes some of the subclasses from base PHP are a little lackluster. I'm looking at you, Dragon Sorcerer. So next up we have the College of Spirits, who sort of use their bardic tale telling and charisma to sort of bring those ancient heroes and mythological figures to life to some degree. Starting out, you get the guidance cantrip, which is nice, and it has a better range. Again, in the best support class there is, having the guidance cantrip is totally in line with that thinking. Next up, you get spiritual focus. That really you get new spellcasting focuses: a candle, crystal ball, skull, spirit board. And the more that I think about this college, the more I feel like it's really for like the psychic medium con man or con woman who has like the rigged table and the fog machine. Like it's very much for that. But the nice thing is you have real magic, so like whatever. It's still a con, but you can make it really believable. And spiritual focus at 6th level, whenever you deal damage or restore hit points with one of these new spiritual focuses, you just get to add a d6 to it, which is great. You know, you're just doing the thing you were going to do, but better. Always fun. Tales from Beyond. While you're holding this crystal ball or whatever it is, you can use your bonus action to use your inspiration table and roll on the Spirit Tales table. Depending on what you roll on the die, determines kind of what ability or what spirit you summon. And they stick around until you do a short or long rest, which is actually kind of nice. And then the other nice thing is that you can give it to someone else. You can give it to yourself, you can give it to someone else. And I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but there are a total of 12 for when you eventually get a D12 as a bard. And they are all interesting and neat. Some are very kind of medium and lackluster. Some are powerful, like the Tale of the Duelist, or the Renowned Duelist, is you get to make a melee spell attack someone, and on a hit, they take force damage equal to 2 rolls of your Bardic Inspiration die plus Charisma modifier. That's going to be good at any level. It's kind of basic, but it's nice. The Tale of Beloved Friends, you can give temporary hit points equal to your Bardic Inspiration and Charisma modifier. So they all kind of, they invoke a story or figures from a story, and they give an appropriate kind of bonus. They're nice, but again, you might want a specific bonus or effect, and that they don't care because you're going to get whatever you roll on the table. So that's good and bad in its own way. Next up, you get Spirit Session at 6th level, where you can do this hour-long ritual to channel spirits, and you get to learn a spell from any class. So it's kind of like a magical secrets that's temporary, and it takes a little bit of prep time, but like you can start every day doing this ritual. Um, and there are some requirements to what spell. It has to be divination or necromancy, but you get a free spell, and there's plenty of very powerful and useful divination and necromancy spells out there. And last but not least, you have the ability to mess with the Spirit Tales tables. Whenever you roll on that table, you can roll twice and choose two of the effects to hand out. Uh, and if you roll the same on both dice, you get to choose any effect you want from the table. So there are some good abilities on that table. Being able to do two of them at 14th level is pretty solid.
That is true. And now the most selfish of bards.
It is the most selfish of bards.
The College of Sword, S-words. They get, they start out with the proficiency in simple and martial weapons, which they can use as their spellcasting focus for their bard spells. They also get medium armor and a scimitar, which I would think the scimitar is technically oh, it's not a okay. Oh, you're right. So they don't have that normally. So they get a scimitar.
No, bards get a very specific weapon list.
That's true. It's very specific. Then they get a fighting style also as well, which is nice. Either dueling or two-weapon fighting. Go with dueling. That way you can cast it their offhand. I don't know what you're talking about. And then
plus you want a Bardic Inspiration with your bonus. Why would you?
Yeah, you got nothing to do. Yeah, that's weird. And then they get their whoa, you're not Bardic Inspiration anyone. You have Blade Flourishes.
That's fair.
So Blade Flourishes is whenever you take the attack action on your turn, your walking speed increases. And if a weapon attack that you make as part of this hits, you can spend one of your inspirations to do a flourish. One of them gives you they all pretty much give you extra damage, but then they have an additional effect. There's a defensive one which lets you add to your AC. There's a one that lets you hit another creature, and there's one that lets you move as part of your attack. Then at 6th level, they get an extra attack, which is great. And their 14th level ability is pretty raucous, which is Master Flourish, where you can you get to roll a d6 if you don't want to expend a Bardic Inspiration die for these maneuvers. So it means that you kind of always can flourish without having to, and so then you might actually start giving away some of your Bardic Inspirations at that point. Doubtful, but you might. Who knows?
Nope.
But yeah, they are a very fighty bard. I've seen some impressive hexblades with them that are kind of silly. But these are, it's a fun bard if you want to be like a dervish warrior twisting and dancing amongst your enemies in precision slashes. And I could see like a bullfighter or someone as like one of these kind of like sword bards.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, you have College of Valor, which is the OG sword bard. That's a good point, Gil Willie. It is not limited to melee. You can get real janky with some range stuff. But College of Valor is honestly one of the ones that I enjoy very much. Because yes, it's kind of basic in a certain sense, but it lets you kind of be a battle bard while still being a team player. Unlike College of Swords, that's like, oh, I'm a battle bard, but it's All about me. um, so I like College of Valor. First off, you get medium armor, you get shields, which I like, and you get all martial weapons, which is very, very nice. Um, Next up, you get your combat inspiration, which lets you use your bardic inspiration to add to AC or damage, which is awesome. And you can use the AC as a reaction, kind of as like a bard shield, which I like a lot. And at sixth level, you get an extra attack. And most likely, you've probably built yourself as this sort of warlord esque, scald, like battle bard kind of feel. So you want that extra attack. Um, and then last at not least, you get battle magic, which is awesome. Is whenever you use an action to cast one of your bard spells, which a lot of them are, you can take an attack as a bonus action. So again, it's a little, I don't know, plain Jane, a little vanilla, but it's a very good multi-class choice, and it's still you're gonna get the feeling of being that like battle leader on the battlefield, which is great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've always liked Valor Bard, to be honest. That's like just a nice, easy, like I want to fight a little bit extra, but still be an amazing bard. All right. And then last college is the College of Whispers. And they're all about just kind of poisoning the minds of their first ability is Psychic Blades, which is when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can use your Bardic Inspiration, to do an extra 2d6 Psychic. You can only do this once per turn, and that damage increases at certain level caps to a max of 86. Again, as was pointed out earlier, that's not limited to melee attacks, as range attacks, as long as it is a weapon attack, which is kind of mean. Words of Terror, I think, is really fascinating, where you speak to a humanoid alone for at least 1 minute, and you can attempt to seed paranoia into his brain, or their brain. And at the end of the conversation, they make a wisdom saving throw, or they're frightened of you or another creature of your choice. So, like, you could be talking about, like, I've heard the mayor, he's been nothing but doing bad things, and now they are frightened of the mayor. Or, like, you can make someone fear the paladin that is coming to town, or a bad guy that you really need to get out. They are frightened this way for an hour, or until they are attacked, damaged, or witness its allies being attacked or damaged. If they succeed on their saving throw, they don't realize that you tried to frighten them. They have no hint of it at all. I think that's kind of interesting. There's another ability like that in some of the other bards as well. I think Eloquence or someone who's talky, the charming one, whatever the charm bard was. Yeah. And then you get this as a recharge on either a short or long rest. Their 6th level ability is their Mantle of Whispers, which is the creepiest fucking shit. Where if a humanoid dies within 30 feet, they can use their reaction to take their shadow. And what they can do with this shadow is they kind of consume it, and it becomes a disguise for them. You look like them, and it lasts for an hour until you dismiss it as a bonus. And while you are disguised, and you've taken their soul, essentially, you gain all the access to the information that they would freely share with a casual acquaintance. So just general details of their background and personal life, but no real secrets. Pretty much it's enough information that you can pass yourself off without, and by drawing on its memory. Another creature can attempt to see through this by doing an insight check tested by your deception, but you have a +5 to your deception while using this. And you can't capture another soul until you finish a short or long rest. And then lastly, they get the Shadow Lore, which you kind of get the power to, again, poison their mind by tapping into their deepest, darkest fears. And with this, you kind of whisper something that only the person you're targeting can hear, and they must make a save. If they
Dude,
fail,
they are super creepy.
yeah, they are the creepiest bard. In fact, I know a creepy bard. He's the creepiest of bards, also. Um, and if it there's a slight downside to this shadow ability, which is if they don't share a language with you, or they can't hear you, they auto save. And if they succeed on their save, it's just a weird whisper that sounds like unintelligible mumbling. But if they fail, the target is charmed by you for 8 hours, or until your allies attack, damage, or force it to make a save. It interprets the whispers as a description of its most mortifying secret. You don't know what that is, but they assume you do. The charmed creature obeys your commands, because in the fear that it will that you'll reveal its secret, and it won't risk its life or fight for you unless it already was inclined to do so. It will grant you favors and gifts that it would offer to a close friend to appease you to not tell the secret. And when the effect ends, the creature has no idea of why it held you in such fear. You can't use this. Obviously, you can only use this once per long rest. So it's weird and creepy, but also very they're insinuous, and they get inside and they poison the minds of their friends and foes, I guess, because I don't know why they're bad.
I feel like you have to play a serial killer to really utilize their abilities.
Yeah, no, Wormtail. Wormtongue. Yeah, definitely that would definitely fit this bard.
Oh man, I'm just a little creeped out from that description. Not gonna lie, Gene.
Yeah.
But as always, no matter what college you take, if you need to change the flavor from the College of Glamour from Fey to Demonic, let's say that's just part of your background is that you got demon blood or devil blood in your lineage and you kind of want to make that a thing. I mean, sure. What's to say that a devil couldn't be charming or frightening to behold, you know? So as always, these are all guidelines. These are all frameworks. And if you find a flavor or you want to express these abilities in a different way to make sense for the character you've created, I say go for it.
Absolutely.
All right. Gene, I suppose we are ready to get into one of our last rooms here and talk about the Bard weaknesses.
I got an 18.
Coming out strong.
I get to win it, maybe 2? We'll find out. You're probably going to roll a 20.
Oh. We tied.
I guess we'll roll again. Yep. That checks out.
Sorry, but I couldn't let you have 2. I'm sorry. I just couldn't do it.
I don't blame you. I shouldn't. What?
Oh my god, it happened twice.
All right. Yeah, no. Evil Palabard is pretty awesome as well. All right. Well,
I mean, I will say, just like wizards for the enchantment school, a lot of these are I help my friends by singing them a song or telling them they look good in their plate mail, even if they are a little chunky. But if you apply these to normal people and just sort of run a town and take over the mind of the mayor, the king, the duke, you can do some real damage.
I went with
and depending on what spells you take, they'll never know it was you.
That's the worst. There we go. There we go. It
was written in the stars. Yeah, so beyond all the horrible things that a bard could accomplish, which is a lot, they do have some weaknesses in a purely mechanical sense. To start out, they are a little squishy. They don't, they have a D8 hit dice, which isn't terrible, but they don't get good armor unless you go swords or valor. So, more likely, unless you're hanging out with a wizard or a sorcerer, you are probably on the low end of the hit point totem pole, so to speak. Um, the nice thing is you do get a training in charisma and dexterity saves, which I thought was very, very cool. But, dexterity is probably like a tertiary stat for you. So you just, for all of the nonsense jankery you're capable of, which is quite a bit, they do tend to lack some defenses.
Yeah, and also they just don't get a lot of proficiencies in like or weapons as well. They get that very tight list.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, another weakness that I think Rennie and I have always had complaints about certain classes is just very like limited spell known. Like you're a full caster, they should just give you the same as everyone else, which is like your level plus your casting mod. Yeah, they only have a certain chart they have to follow with the amount of spells they know, and it's a little. It makes it so you don't have as much versatility, but I guess because you're so good at supporting others, it makes sense that they're like, we gotta limit you somehow.
Right. And I'll even say this, as much as that is a weakness, because you are very locked into the tricks slash spells that you've chosen, the Bard spell list is pretty dope. Like it's pretty awesome. Um so, you know, I do agree with Gene about the limited spells known, but having played a bard, I was not disappointed in any way by my choices or by the list I had to choose from. But they do have a very truncated spell list, and that's kind of one of the reasons that you get magical secrets is a lot of their spells tend to be illusory or support or healing, and you get the occasional damage or you get the occasional, just useful spell. But their spells tend to be in the more trickery and mind fuckery domain. So I think it's a weakness, and it's not, because it definitely speaks to like what the class is built on, and why they have the spell list is because that's sort of the way they express their magic. But I still think their list is pretty good.
Yeah, but they're just like, if you're fighting a ton of undead and devils, like a lot of your charmed and frightened spells
Right.
are not going to be as useful.
That's very true.
And kind of adding is like a lot of their abilities specifically talk about that you need to be heard, seen, or understood. And so that is both on you and your DM to be keep track of, because not everything is going to share your language. There's a lot of languages in D&D. So some of your abilities might actually get hindered or hampered. So you gotta kind of be aware of, luckily most humanoids speak common, but some don't. So you need to you probably want to have as many languages under your belt or tongues cast or something to kind of give you that ability so things can hear, see, and understand you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can also screw you in a dungeon if your buddy goes around a corner. Now they can't see you. But still. Last up, kind of a weakness for a lot of full casters, for any full caster class, or is that anti-magic really messes you up. I mean, the thing about bards is while it messes you up, you still have Bardic Inspiration, which is entirely quote-unquote non-magical. So you can still be useful to your party. Some of your bardic abilities are like from your colleges. Again, not really not like some of them are clearly magical, some aren't. So like anti-magic is a problem, but it's probably not going to ruin, you're not going to be like a wizard where you're like, well, I pick my nose and I do it a lot. Like, you're not just going to be useless.
On this question about what if it's a bardic mind flayer that communicates via telepathy, well, I think that would appeal to the understood. I don't know if that would be heard. So you would have to consult your GM. I think I would probably rule that would count as hearing, but I feel like if they were under some sort of condition that deafened them, that even with telepathy, maybe they couldn't hear you, just to kind of keep it in balance.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, while bards do have some weaknesses, kind of the thing is that because their class is really built around jack of all trades and being able to do a lot of things, some very good, some just okay, even when you take away one piece of that puzzle from them, they still have stuff they can do. So, like, bards are actually one of those classes, and I'm very, very fond of them, that they can kind of be useful in any situation. You know, it doesn't really matter what you're going up against. They're gonna contribute. Are they gonna do all the damage? Probably not. Are they gonna, be the deciding factor? Maybe, maybe not. But they're always gonna contribute and be useful in some way.
Absolutely. All right.
I suppose it's time to move on to the room of reflection.
It's about that time.
Reflection, reflection, reflection.
And we reflected. All right. And remember, guys, please ask questions while we're kind of talking through this room so that we can answer them at the end.
Yeah. Gene, why don't you start? I feel bad. I beat you so much in initiative.
Listen, it's how it was written. I win
It
one,
was.
you win the rest. All right. So I will say I think Bard is a great multi-class. They get a lot out the gate. Oh, nice.
How dare you, Ocelotus? How dare you?
I'll take that question. I'll describe that for you.
I would never sully bards with warlock.
He has sullied a paladin with warlock, so don't let him say that. Anyway, but yeah, they're a great multi-class because your first, second, and third level, you get a lot out of there. You get your, jack of all trades. You get your bardic inspiration. And you then get your specialty, which a lot of those colleges give you 2 abilities at third level. So I think either multi-classing into Bard or out of Bard at like 14th once you've gotten your capstone, or even 10th because you got your magical secrets is not terrible. And they work really well with a lot. I mean, a Bard, like we were talking, you could definitely easily make a Bard lock, like this kind of... with like College of Swords, so you're just smashing people with flourishes, and any of these. And if you want to expand any spell lists, I mean, it's a great way to really make Warlock better just by having more spells.
Yeah, because it's less Warlock. That's why it's better.
Listen, I made a multi-class Warlock Bard, and it was...
I mean, I'll say this. I think Bard is a great multi-class for any charisma class. It's kind of a no-brainer, Sorcerer Bard, I'm going to tell you, fucking phenomenal. Paladin Bard, really awesome. Helps with your action economy, depending on what college you take, it can really boost you up. But, like, I'll say this. I think Bard works with almost any class. I'm sure there's... Ranger Bard may not be terribly impressive, but like even those like a few levels of Bard give you the inspiration, give you jack of all trades. Like you get a lot of things that any class would really benefit from. So Bard is honestly one of the best multi-class options out there.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Rennie and I, when Hexblade first came out. And Sword Bard came out, we were at like one of those epics for Adventurers League, and we watched a Bard lock destroy with flourishes and fucking the smites, the Eldritch Smites. We were like, what is happening?
Yeah, that's before we knew about it like really thoroughly. We're like, I think this dude is fucking on crack. Like,
I think this dude is cheating. Yeah. So then I guess like feats. I mean, I think Warcaster is honestly, I think a pretty good feat for most casters, and especially bards, because a lot of your spells are concentration, so you don't really want to lose it if you cast it. Um, I don't really know other.
Skilled is great for bards.
Also, skill expert as well. Give yourself
Yeah,
another expertise. Why the fuck not?
definitely, definitely.
Depending on how stringent and what your GM is doing, whatever the feat that gives you 3 more languages, like, might not be too bad if you're worried about things not understanding you.
I mean, it's certainly good for things like suggestion and charm person, because if they can't understand you, those spells just straight up don't work. So if you're like, oh, we're hanging out in Devil Town, and I think they might be immune, but like whatever, we're hanging out in Yuantiville, I better learn Abyssal and Draconic, like.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I think any of those Fey Touched is phenomenal for them. Same with Shadow Touched. I think those are very good for them. And again, it comes down to, did you multiclass with your bard? For a straight up bard build, anything that's going to give you extra spells, awesome. It's just more tricks for your bag of tricks.
I know I've seen a lot of bards with crossbow expert.
Sure, I can see that.
But yeah. All right, I think that's good for feats and ideas. Let's go with some personal anecdotes. So I think bards are a super fun class. They gain a lot throughout each level. Like, you don't feel like you have useless levels, because levels you don't get stuff generally increase in your spell casting, like slots or level, like so. So I think they're amazing for support, and as long as you want to help everyone and you don't always, let's say, need to be the center of attention by doing the most damage, it's an amazing class. You are awesome, and you make your friends feel more awesome. So there's not really much, more or that to that.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I recently played a Bard Sorcerer. For anyone who watched our Curse of Strahd stream, I had a fucking blast playing a Bard Sorcerer. And I mean, I did a lot of janky bullshit in that game. But I was constantly like disguise selfing myself and infiltrating like secret book clubs. I would throw my voice to try to distract enemies. The probably the most bard bullshit we ever pulled was during one of the Barovian festivals, as there are many for anyone who has played that campaign. And we wanted to really shit on Strahd, like you do. And so we decided to put on a play to really just crap all over Strahd. And we had like no preparation. We didn't plan for anything. But I ended up like through using silent image and Bardic Inspirations and like just being very good at performance and stuff like that. I ended up like narrating a impromptu play with having all the other characters sort of adding to it with special effects with magic, and the druid transformed into different animals for different parts of the play, and I used the silent image to like cover our barbarian, and I sort of like, as I narrated, he would change his acting in accordance. It was nonsense, silly fun, but I was really able to kind of like, yeah, I'm a one-man show. Let's do this. Yeah, Bard is great for that kind of stuff. And I'm sure anyone who's played a Bard for any amount of time has some like, and then I did some bullshit and, I made the town love us, or I got us out of jail, or whatever. Um, But yeah, no, Bard is a phenomenal class, and again, like Gene said, as long as you have the mentality and you can be a support character and know that even though you do the most damage to do the most stuff, that you contributed to success, right? That you had a that you had a hand in making sure your group was victorious in whatever sense that is.
All right. Well, now time to move on to our closing statements, which is we'd really like to thank you, Judge Judy Slayer, for following us.
Such a good name. Such a
Hilarious
good name.
Ocelotus, thank you for actively asking questions. And where's this Willie person that I?
Gil Willie.
Gil Willie, thank you also for participating. It helps us, bounce more stuff off.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thank you everyone who joined us and stuck with us. Yeah, I'm excited. We only have a few classes left, folks. We have, I think, Druid, Wizard, and Artificer are the only three we have left.
Yeah, and then we also have our community special.
Yes, we are going to have our community special, but after we do classes and our community goal, which are just going to be posted very soon, sky's the limit. We might get a little more esoteric. We might get a little more even nittier and grittier. We're gonna play up with the format, and I hope you stick around to see where this goes.
All right, yeah. So we're going. Oh yeah, for an artificer. Oh man.
I fucking love
Rennie and I can talk about artificers. We're just worried it's going to be too short of an episode, but it's not going to be because we're going to talk so much about artificers. Tune in tomorrow, guys, if you want to watch Rennie, I, Julia, and a few others play some D&D when I run in our Lost Legacy campaign. And like you said, thank you for watching. If you want to just stay tuned with us while we raid another channel, that would be super duper. So we're going to wave goodbye and go to our clothing screen. And then we're gonna go raid someone.